Kevin Harper stepped off the transport shuttle and stared at the massive station floating in space. Station Kara 7 was bigger than any city he had ever seen on Earth. The Galactic Defense Academy was here, and somehow he was supposed to teach at it. He still could not believe it. A tall reptilian creature walked toward him. Its scales were dark green and its eyes were cold and yellow. This was Commander Thexral, the head of tactical survival training. Kevin had read about him. 40 years of combat experience. Dozens of successful missions. A legend among the Kresh people. "So you are the human they sent," Thexral said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "I requested an experienced instructor. They sent me someone from a species that joined the Allied systems only 15 years ago." Kevin kept his face neutral. He had dealt with this attitude before. "I served in Earth's military for 12 years, sir. I have experience in survival situations and tactical operations." "Against other humans," Thexral said with what might have been a laugh. "You have never faced real threats. You know nothing of galactic warfare, but orders are orders. You will assist me. Try not to embarrass yourself too badly." The commander turned and walked away. Kevin followed him through the station's wide corridors. Aliens of every shape and size moved past them. Some had fur, some had scales, some looked like walking insects. Kevin was still getting used to all of it. Earth had been alone for so long. Now they were part of something huge, and most species looked at humans like they were children playing at being soldiers. They reached the training center. Through a window, Kevin could see a class in session. 20 young cadets sat in rows. They looked bored. An instructor was lecturing about defensive formations. "That will be your class," Thexral said. "Most are average students, but we have 5 Vryn cubs. They are the ones that matter." Kevin spotted them immediately. They looked like bears, but they walked upright and wore uniforms. Even sitting down, they were bigger than the other students. Their fur was thick and dark, and their eyes were sharp. They looked strong. Dangerous, even. "The Vryn are a warrior culture," Thexral continued. "These cubs have been training in combat since they could walk. Their species has won more battles than any other in the Allied systems. You will not coddle them. They respond only to strength." Kevin watched the cubs. One of them, the largest, was whispering to the others. They were laughing at something. He wondered what it was like, growing up as a warrior from birth. On Earth, 12-year-olds went to school and played games. These cubs probably knew a dozen ways to kill someone already. The next day, Kevin met his class for the first time. He stood at the front of the room while Thexral introduced him. The cadets looked at him with barely hidden curiosity. He was probably the first human most of them had ever seen up close. "This is Instructor Harper," Thexral announced. "He will be assisting me this term. You will show him the same respect you show me." The words said one thing, but Thexral's tone said another. The cadets heard it. Kevin saw several of them exchange glances. The Vryn cubs looked openly amused. Thexral left, and Kevin was alone with the class. He took a breath and began. "My name is Kevin Harper. I am from Earth. I know most of you have not worked with humans before. I know our species is new to the Allied systems, but I am here to teach you something important: how to survive." One of the Vryn cubs raised a massive paw. "We already know how to survive, human. We are Vryn. Survival is in our blood." The other cubs made sounds of agreement. Their names were Caro, Mila, Jeth, Rin, and Tessa. Caro was the one who had spoken. He was the biggest and clearly the leader. "Surviving in training is different from surviving in the real world," Kevin said calmly. "When everything goes wrong, when you have no weapons, no backup, no communication, what do? "We fight," said Mila, the smallest of the cubs. She had a scar across her snout. "We fight until we win or die with honor." Kevin nodded slowly. "And if fighting means everyone dies? If fighting means your entire team is lost? Is that still victory?" The class went quiet. Caro's eyes narrowed. "You speak like a coward. A true warrior does not fear death." "I do not fear death," Kevin said. "But I respect life. Every soldier under my command, every member of my team, their lives matter. Getting them home alive matters more than glory. Caro snorted and sat back. The other cubs looked disappointed. Kevin knew he had lost them already, but he continued with the lesson anyway. Over the next few weeks, the pattern repeated itself. Thexral would teach aggressive tactics, overwhelming force, direct confrontation. Then Kevin would suggest alternatives, ways to avoid fights, ways to use the environment, ways to retreat and regroup. Every time Thexral would dismiss him, sometimes publicly, in front of the entire class. The cadets learned quickly that Kevin's ideas were not valued here. The Vryn cubs especially seemed to enjoy watching the human instructor get shut down. During one simulation exercise, Kevin watched as Thexral sent a team of cadets directly into an ambush scenario. The simulation was designed to teach them to fight through overwhelming odds. But Kevin saw another option, a side passage that would let them flank the enemy position and complete the mission without casualties. He suggested it quietly to Thexral. The commander looked at him with something close to disgust. "We are training warriors, not rats that scurry through shadows. The direct approach teaches courage. It also teaches them to die," Kevin said before he could stop himself. The room went silent. Every cadet stared at them. Thexral's scales seemed to darken with anger. "You question my methods?" the commander said slowly. "You who have never fought a real battle against alien forces? You think your primitive Earth tactics are superior to 40 years of proven combat experience?" Kevin felt his face grow hot, but he kept his voice level. "I think survival should be the priority. Courage means nothing if everyone is dead." Thexral stepped closer. He towered over Kevin. "Your species has been in space for barely a moment. You know nothing. Return to your quarters. I will handle this class alone." Kevin left the training room. Behind him, he heard the Vryn cubs laughing. He heard Caro say something about weak humans and soft thinking. More laughter followed. That night, Kevin sat in his small quarters and wondered if coming to the academy had been a mistake. Earth needed humans in positions like this. They needed to prove they belonged in the Allied systems. But how could he teach anything when no one would listen? He thought about his time in Earth's military. The resource wars had been brutal. He had lost friends. He had lost his entire unit once because a commanding officer decided glory was more important than caution. Kevin had been the only survivor. He had carried that weight ever since. Maybe that was why he cared so much about bringing everyone home. Maybe that was why he could not accept Thexral's approach. But here, in this place, his experience meant nothing. His ideas were seen as weakness. Kevin looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Home felt very far away. He did not know it then, but everything was about to change. Sometimes the universe has a way of testing people. Sometimes it puts them in situations where the only thing that matters is staying alive. And when that happened, the Academy would learn something new about humans. They would learn that surviving is not weakness. Sometimes it is the hardest thing of all. The transport ship shook violently and alarms screamed through the cabin. Kevin grabbed his seat as the lights flickered. Around him, 20 cadets shouted in panic. Some were crying. The Vryn cubs roared in confusion and anger. "Everyone stay. In your seats," Commander Thexral bellowed from the front. But even his voice sounded uncertain now. This was supposed to be a routine training mission. They were meant to visit a nearby moon, practice some basic survival skills, and return to the Academy. Simple. Safe. But something had gone terribly wrong with the ship's systems. Now they were spinning out of control, falling toward that same moon much too fast. The ship hit the ground hard. Metal screamed and tore. Kevin felt himself thrown forward against his restraints. His head cracked against something solid, and stars burst across his vision. Then everything went dark. When Kevin woke up, his head throbbed with pain. He touched his forehead and his fingers came away bloody. Around him, cadets were groaning and crying. Some were trying to free themselves from their seats. Others sat in shock, staring at nothing. Kevin forced himself to focus. He unbuckled his restraints and stood on shaky legs. "Sound off," he called out. "Tell me if you are hurt." The cadets slowly responded. Most had minor injuries, cuts, bruises, maybe some broken bones, but they were alive. Kevin counted them, 20 cadets, all present. Then he looked toward the front of the ship. Commander Thexerol was slumped in his seat. A piece of metal from the ceiling had fallen and struck him. Blood matted his scales. Kevin rushed forward and checked for breathing. Still alive but unconscious. The injury looked bad. Is the commander dead? Caro asked. The big Vryn cub had pushed forward to see. The other cubs were right behind him. No, but he is badly hurt, Kevin said. He looked at the cadets. They were all watching him, waiting. They were scared and they were looking to him for answers. We need to get organized. First we check everyone for serious injuries. Then we figure out where we are and what we have to work with. You are in command? Jeth asked. He was one of the Vryn cubs, slightly smaller than Caro. You are just an assistant instructor. Right now I am the only instructor who is conscious, Kevin said firmly. So yes, I am in command. Does anyone have a problem with that? The cubs looked at each other uncertainly. The other cadets said nothing. They were too frightened to argue. Kevin organized them quickly. He put some cadets in charge of treating injuries. Others went through the ship looking for supplies that survived the crash. A few worked on trying to get the communication systems working. Kevin made sure everyone had something to do. People with tasks did not panic as easily. The news was not good. The communication array was completely destroyed. The ship's emergency beacon was not working. They had some medical supplies, some food and water, but not much. And when someone got the outside sensors working, they discovered the moon's atmosphere had toxic pockets. Going outside without checking air quality first would be deadly. We need shelter, Kevin said. He looked at the damaged ship. This will have to do for now. We can seal off the sections that are still airtight. We need to ration food and water carefully. Help will come, but it might take a few days. A few days? Mila, the smallest cub, sounded frightened. What if they do not find us? They will find us, Kevin said with more confidence than he felt. But we need to stay calm and work together. Can you do that? Mila nodded slowly. The other cubs looked less certain, but they did not argue. That first night was hard. They managed to seal off a section of the ship and set up a small heating unit. The moon was cold, and the ship's power was failing. Everyone huddled together for warmth. Commander Thexral still had not woken up. Kevin treated his wounds as best he could, but the creche needed proper medical care soon. Kevin sat near the heating unit and watched the cadets. Some were sleeping. Others stared at the walls in shock. The Vryn cubs sat together talking in low voices. They kept glancing at him. You are not what I expected, Caro said suddenly. The big cub had walked over to Kevin. I thought you would panic or try to give inspirational speeches, but you just started working. Kevin looked at him. Panic does not help. Speeches do not fix broken ships. Work does. The Vryn way is to fight, Caro said. When faced with a threat, we attack. But there is nothing here to fight, just cold and damage and waiting. I do not know what to do. You do what needs to be done, Kevin said simply. You take care of your people. You make sure everyone survives until help arrives. That is what warriors do. Caro thought about this. That does not sound glorious. It is not, Kevin agreed. But it keeps people alive. And alive is better than glorious and dead. The cub made a huffing sound that might have been a laugh. He returned to the others. The second day was worse. A massive storm rolled across the moon. Lightning struck the ground constantly. The wind howled and shook the damaged ship. The cadets were terrified. Kevin knew their shelter might not hold if the storm got worse. He made a decision. The crash site was about half a mile away from where they were now. The ship had broken apart during the landing, and the other section had equipment they needed. Medical supplies, a working distress beacon maybe, but getting there meant going out into the storm. I am going to the crash site, Kevin announced. I will be back in a few hours. That is crazy, said Rin, another of the cubs. The storm will kill you. Maybe, Kevin said. But we need those supplies. Commander Thexeral needs real medical help. The beacon could save all of us. Then I will go with you, Caro said. Kevin shook his head. No. I need you here. If something happens to me, you are in charge. Keep everyone calm. Keep them safe. Can you do that? Caro looked surprised that Kevin would trust him with such a task. He straightened up. Yes. I can do that. Kevin put on an environmental suit and went out into the storm. The wind nearly knocked him down immediately. Lightning turned the sky purple and white. He could barely see where he was going, but he pushed forward, step by step. The journey was a nightmare. Twice he fell. Once lightning struck so close he felt his hair stand on end, but he kept going. When he reached the other section of the ship, he found what he needed: medical supplies, emergency rations, and yes, a working distress beacon. The trip back was even harder. He was tired now and carrying a heavy pack. The storm seemed to grow stronger. At one point, he slipped on wet rocks and fell hard. Pain shot through his leg, but he got up and kept moving. When he stumbled back into the shelter, the cadets rushed to help him. He was soaked and shivering and bleeding from a dozen cuts, but he had the supplies. He activated the distress beacon immediately. The light blinked steadily. Help would come now. They just had to hold on a little longer. Kevin collapsed near the heating unit. Mila brought him water. Jeth helped bandage his leg. The other cubs watched him with something new in their eyes, something like respect. You did not have to do that, Caro said quietly. You could have sent one of us, or waited for the storm to pass. Kevin looked at him through tired eyes. You are my responsibility, all of you, and I do not send others into danger I would not face myself. On the third day, they heard the sound of engines. Rescue ships appeared in the sky. Everyone cheered. They were going home. They had survived. Commander Thexeral woke up during the rescue. He was confused and in pain, but alive. As they loaded him onto a medical transport, he looked at Kevin. Something passed between them. An understanding, perhaps. Or the beginning of one. 2 weeks passed after the rescue. Commander Thexeral spent most of that time in the medical center, recovering from his injuries. Kevin went back to teaching, though the academy had given him time off if he wanted it. He did not want it. Work helped him not think about how close they had all come to dying. The cadets who had been on that moon were different now. They were quieter in class, more focused. They looked at Kevin differently too, especially the Vryn cubs. Caro and the others actually listened when he spoke now. They asked questions. Real questions, not challenges. One afternoon, Mila stayed after class. The small cub looked nervous. Instructor Harper, she said, I wanted to say thank you for going into the storm, for getting the medicine that helped Commander Thexeral. Kevin felt uncomfortable with the gratitude. I was just doing my job. No, Mila said firmly. You risked your life for us. For all of us, even though we were not kind to you before the crash. Even though we laughed at you and called your ideas weak, you still saved us. That is what teachers do, Kevin said simply. We protect our students. Mila looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She placed her large paw over her heart in a Vryn salute. You have honor, Kevin Harper. More than I understood before. After she left, Kevin sat alone in the classroom. He thought about his old unit on Earth. The soldiers he had lost because their commander valued glory over caution. He had not been able to save them. But he had saved these cadets. Maybe that meant something. The academy administration called a special assembly. Every cadet in the entire academy was required to attend. Instructors, too. Kevin sat in the back, unsure why such a big event was happening. Then he saw Commander Thexeral walk onto the stage. The creche commander had recovered well. He moved a bit stiffly, but he was strong again. High-ranking officials from multiple species sat on the stage. Kevin recognized Admiral Zerath, a creche military legend. There was also Admiral Shen, one of the few high-ranking humans in the Allied Systems military. Others he did not know. This was clearly important. We are here to discuss the incident on Training Mission 773, Thexeral began. His voice carried through the huge auditorium. 20 cadets and 2 instructors crashed on an uncharted moon. Systems failed. Communication was lost. For 3 days, these cadets faced real danger. The auditorium was silent. Every cadet listened. Incidents like this were rare. When they happened, the Academy studied them carefully. I was unconscious for most of this time, Thexral continued, so I have asked the cadets themselves to tell us what happened. But first I want to teach a lesson. He gestured, and the 20 cadets from the crash walked onto the stage. They lined up looking nervous in front of so many people. Kevin spotted Caro and the other Vryn cubs. They stood together, as always. I have trained warriors for 40 years, Thexral said. I have taught courage, strength, and the warrior's path. I have taught that when faced with impossible circumstances, a true warrior fights with honor and never surrenders. He paused. But these cadets faced something different. They could not fight their way out. There was no enemy to defeat with strength. So I ask them now, and I ask all of you to hear their answer. When faced with impossible circumstances, who did you look to for salvation? Who embodied the warrior spirit that kept you alive? The question hung in the air. Kevin suddenly had a bad feeling about this. He wanted to leave, but that would draw attention. The cadets on stage looked at each other. Then, as if they had planned it, all 20 of them turned. They faced the audience, and they pointed directly at Kevin. The auditorium erupted in shocked whispers. Kevin felt his face burn. Hundreds of eyes turned to look at him. He wanted to disappear. This was too much attention. He did not do anything special. He just kept them alive. Caro stepped forward. The big Vryn cub's voice was clear and strong. We pointed to Instructor Kevin Harper. The human. He was the one who saved us. Explain, Thexral said. Caro looked at Kevin, then back at the audience. When the ship crashed, we were afraid. We are Vryn. We are raised as warriors from birth, but we did not know what to do. We wanted to fight, but there was nothing to fight. We wanted to show strength, but we did not know what strength looked like in that situation. Mila stepped forward too. Instructor Harper showed us. He did not give speeches about courage. He did not tell us to die with honor. He organized us. He gave us tasks. He made sure everyone was cared for. He made us feel like we could survive. Jeth spoke next. When the storm came, he went out alone to get supplies. He could have sent one of us. We are bigger, stronger, but he said we were his responsibility. He came back hurt, but he came back with what we needed to live. He taught us something, Rin added. He taught us that a true warrior does not seek death gloriously. A true warrior finds a way to bring everyone home alive. Tessa, who had barely spoken during the entire ordeal, said simply, "He kept us alive. All of us, that is what matters." The auditorium was completely silent now. Kevin could not breathe. This was not how things were supposed to go. Thexral was the commander. Thexral was the legend. The cubs should be praising him, not a human assistant instructor. Admiral Zerath stood up. The old Kresh warrior looked at Kevin with hard eyes. "You are the human who questioned Commander Thexral's methods. You are the one who spoke of retreat and caution instead of courage." Kevin stood up slowly. Every eye in the auditorium was on him. "Yes, sir. That is me. And yet when crisis came, these cadets looked to you," Zerath continued. "These Vryn cubs, raised in the warrior tradition for generations, say you taught them about true strength." He paused. "What do you say to that?" Kevin thought about his answer carefully. "I say that surviving is not the same as winning. But sometimes survival is enough. Sometimes keeping your people alive is the greatest victory." "Do you believe the old ways are wrong?" Zerath asked. There was danger in that question. "No, sir," Kevin said. "I believe the old ways are incomplete. Courage is important. Strength is important. But they mean nothing if everyone dies. A dead warrior cannot protect anyone. A dead warrior cannot teach the next generation. Living to fight another day is not cowardice. Sometimes it is the hardest choice of all." Admiral Shen, the human, smiled slightly. But she said nothing. Thexral spoke again. "Before the crash, I dismissed Instructor Harper's ideas. I called them weak. I thought he did not understand warfare because humans are new to the galaxy." The commander's voice was heavy. "I was wrong." The auditorium erupted again. Whispers became shouts. Cadets from every species talked excitedly. A Kresh commander admitting he was wrong was almost unheard of. "I have spent 40 years teaching one kind of strength," Thexral continued. "But there are other kinds. Instructor Harper showed us one of them. The strength to put others first. The strength to make hard choices. The strength to keep going when giving up would be easier. He looked directly at Kevin. I have much to learn from this human. We all do. Admiral Zarath stood again. This assembly is concluded, but I think we will be discussing this incident for a long time to come. As cadets began to file out, many came up to Kevin. Some wanted to shake his hand. Others just wanted to look at him up close. The Vryn cub stayed near him, as if protecting him from the crowd. You look uncomfortable, Caro observed. I do not like attention, Kevin admitted. Too bad, Mila said with what might have been a grin. You are famous now. The human who taught the Vryn cubs about survival. Kevin groaned. This was going to make his job much harder. But as he looked at the 5 cubs, at their healthy faces and bright eyes, he could not regret what had happened. They were alive. All 20 cadets were alive. That was what mattered. Later, Admiral Shen found him in a quiet corridor. You know what you have done, do not you? She asked. Made a lot of people question their military training? Kevin guessed. You have given humanity a voice in galactic military doctrine, Shen said. For 15 years, we have been the new species. The unproven ones. The weak ones. But now cadets from warrior species are pointing to a human and calling him their salvation. Do you understand how significant that is? Kevin did understand. And it terrified him. He was just trying to keep some kids alive. He never meant to challenge the entire Allied system's military structure. What happens now? He asked. Shen smiled. Now you teach. And we see how many others are ready to learn. The changes started small. Kevin was promoted to senior instructor. He was given his own classroom and more authority to design his curriculum. The academy administration asked him to develop new courses on survival tactics and adaptive thinking. Kevin worked late every night, writing lesson plans and training scenarios. He wanted to get this right. If cadets from across the Allied systems were going to learn from him, he needed to make sure he was teaching them properly. But not everyone was happy about the changes. Kevin heard the whispers in the hallways. Some instructors thought he was making soldiers weak. Some cadets from warrior species felt insulted that they had to learn from a human. And some military leaders in the Allied system saw the new curriculum as a threat to centuries of tradition. The Vryn cubs became his unofficial assistants. Caro, Mila, Jeth, Rin, and Tessa helped him demonstrate techniques to other cadets. They showed that you could honor warrior traditions while also embracing new ideas. It was not always easy. The cubs faced criticism from their own people. Some Vryn elders said they had forgotten what it meant to be true warriors. My father sent me a message, Mila told Kevin one day. She looked sad. He said I have shamed our family by praising a human's methods. He said I should have learned from Commander Thexerel, not from you. Kevin felt a pang of guilt. I am sorry. I never meant to cause problems between you and your family. Do not be sorry, Mila said firmly. You taught me something important. You taught me that staying alive matters. My father is a great warrior, but he has never had to keep a group of frightened cadets alive on a hostile moon. You have. Your way works. Across the academy, similar conversations were happening. Some cadets thrived under the new training. They learned to think creatively, to use their environment, to see retreat as a tactical option instead of cowardice. But others struggled. They felt the new methods went against everything they had been taught since birth. Kevin tried to find a balance. He did not want to erase warrior traditions. He just wanted to add something new, a different perspective. But change was hard, especially for species that had been doing things the same way for hundreds of years. Then, 3 months after the assembly, a problem emerged. A group of senior cadets started planning something. Kevin did not know about it at first. They were careful, secretive. But they were angry about the new curriculum, and they wanted to prove it was flawed. The leader was a Kresh named Vexthor. He was big, even for a Kresh, strong and skilled. He had grown up hearing stories about Commander Thexerel's glorious battles. He wanted to be a legendary warrior like that. He saw Kevin's teachings as an insult to everything he believed in. Vexthor gathered other like-minded cadets, mostly warrior species, mostly those who felt the old ways were being disrespected. They made a plan. During the next major war games exercise, they would sabotage certain systems. Not dangerously, or so they thought. Just enough to make Kevin's adaptive tactics look foolish compared to traditional aggressive approaches. Kevin knew something was wrong, but he could not figure out what. He noticed certain cadets acting strangely. whispering in corners, going quiet when he walked past. He mentioned it to Thexerl. The creche commander had changed since the crash. He and Kevin had become something like friends. Not close, but respectful. Thexerl had even started incorporating some of Kevin's ideas into his own teaching. "Let me investigate," Thexerl said. "If there is a problem, I will find it." But before Thexerl could discover the plot, the war games began. It was a massive exercise involving over 200 cadets. The scenario was complex. Multiple teams, shifting objectives, simulated combat in the Academy's huge holographic training dome. The dome could create entire cities, forests, or alien landscapes using hard light projections. It was the most advanced training facility in the Allied systems. Kevin was assigned to monitor a team that included the Vryn Cubs. They were doing well, using a mix of traditional tactics and the new adaptive methods. Then things started going wrong. First, the safety protocols flickered. Then some of the holographic enemies began acting erratically, more aggressive than programmed. Teams started calling in problems. Equipment was malfunctioning. The simulation was becoming too dangerous. Kevin was in the control room when he realized what was happening. Someone had tampered with the systems, but they had done it badly. Instead of a minor disruption, they had caused a cascade failure. The dome's safety controls were shutting down. The simulated dangers were becoming real dangers. "We need to evacuate the dome now," Kevin shouted. The technicians scrambled to implement emergency protocols. But the doors had locked, some kind of malfunction in the security system. Over 200 cadets were trapped inside a training dome that was quickly becoming a death trap. On the monitors, Kevin could see chaos. Cadets were panicking. Holographic fire was generating real heat. Simulated explosions were creating actual shockwaves. "This was a disaster. Can we shut down the dome?" Kevin asked. "No," a technician said, her face pale. "The shutdown protocols are not responding. Someone locked them out." Kevin's blood went cold. This was not a prank gone wrong. This was a catastrophe. He grabbed a communication headset. "All cadets, this is Instructor Harper. Listen carefully. The simulation has malfunctioned. The dangers are real now. You need to find shelter and stay safe. We are working on getting you out." He could hear the fear in their responses. These were trained cadets, but they were still young, still learning. And now they were trapped in a malfunctioning death machine. On one monitor, Kevin spotted the Vryn Cubs. They were with about a dozen other cadets in a section of the dome that simulated a ruined city. Holographic enemies were advancing on them. But these enemies could actually hurt them now. "Caro, can you hear me?" Kevin said into his headset. "I hear you, Instructor." Caro's voice came back. He sounded scared but in control. "You need to take charge," Kevin said. "Get everyone to shelter. Defend your position. We are coming to get you out, but it might take time." "Understood," Caro said. "Then Instructor Vexthor is here with us. He is injured. I think he did something to the systems. He keeps saying he did not mean for this to happen. So it was Vexthor." Kevin felt anger rise in him, but he pushed it down. That could be dealt with later. Right now, he needed to save those cadets. "Take care of him anyway," Kevin said. "Even if he caused this, he is still one of your team." "Yes, Instructor," Caro said. Kevin turned to Thexerl, who had rushed to the control room. "We need to get inside the dome and manually override the systems." "That will be dangerous," Thexerl said. "I know," Kevin replied. "But we do not have a choice. Those are our cadets in there." Thexerl nodded slowly. Something passed between them. An understanding forged in crisis. "Then we go together." They geared up quickly. Emergency suits, tools, communication equipment. Admiral Zarath arrived and tried to order them to wait for a specialized rescue team. But that would take too long. "With respect, sir, those cadets need help now," Kevin said. "Every minute we wait, the situation gets worse." Zarath looked at him with those hard creche eyes. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. "Go, save them." Kevin and Thexerl entered the dome through a maintenance access. Inside was chaos. The holographic city was flickering in and out of existence. Fires burned in some sections. They could hear explosions in the distance. They moved quickly but carefully. Kevin's training kicked in. Assess the environment. Identify dangers. Find the safest path. Thexerl followed his lead without question. The commander who once dismissed human tactics now trusted Kevin's judgment completely. They found groups of cadets along the way. Frightened, some injured but alive. Kevin organized them. got them moving toward the maintenance exits. Each group they found was a small victory, but the Vryn cubs were deep in the dome in one of the most unstable sections. Kevin and Thexrel pushed forward. They had to reach them. On his headset, Kevin listened to Caro directing the other cadets. The cub was doing well. He had found shelter in a collapsed building. He was treating injuries. He was keeping everyone calm. Kevin felt pride surge through him. Caro had learned. They all had learned. "We are coming to you," Kevin said into the headset. "Hold on just a little longer." "We will be here, Instructor," Caro replied. Then, almost shyly, "We trust you." Those words gave Kevin strength. He and Thexrel moved faster, navigating the collapsing simulation around them. They would reach the cubs. They would save them all, because that was what teachers did. That was what warriors did, not the warriors of old stories and glory, but the warriors who understood that the greatest victory was bringing everyone home alive. Kevin and Thexrel moved through the collapsing simulation like ghosts. Fires burned around them. Holographic walls flickered and disappeared, then reappeared in different places. The dome was tearing itself apart and they were running out of time. There, Thexrel pointed to a partially collapsed building. Through the smoke, Kevin could see movement inside. The cadets. The cubs. They pushed forward, climbing over rubble that was half real and half holographic. It was disorienting, not knowing what was solid and what would disappear at any moment. But they kept moving. Inside the building, they found them. 15 cadets huddled together. The 5 Vryn cubs were at the front, protecting the others. Caro stood guard at the entrance, his training weapon ready even though it would do nothing against the malfunctioning simulation. When he saw Kevin and Thexrel, relief flooded his face. "Instructor Harper." "Commander Thexrel," Caro called out. The other cubs rushed forward. Kevin quickly assessed the situation. Most cadets had minor injuries. One had a broken arm. Another was unconscious but breathing. And in the corner, isolated from the others, sat Vexthor. The big Kresh looked terrible. His scales were burned and he was crying. "I am sorry," Vexthor kept saying. "I did not mean for this to happen. I just wanted to prove the old ways were better. I did not know it would malfunction like this. I did not want anyone to die." Kevin knelt beside him. He felt anger, yes. This cadet's pride and stupidity had put everyone in danger, but he also saw a scared young person who had made a terrible mistake. "We will deal with that later," Kevin said firmly but not unkindly. "Right now we need to get everyone out." "Can you walk?" Vexthor nodded miserably. Kevin helped him up and Mila came over to support him. The small cub looked at Vexthor with something between anger and pity. "You are still one of us," Mila said to the Kresh. "Even if you did something stupid, we do not leave people behind." Kevin smiled slightly. She had learned well. Thexrel was checking the route back. "The path we came through is blocked now. The simulation has shifted. We need another way out." Kevin pulled up a map of the dome on his datapad. The maintenance tunnels ran throughout the entire structure. If they could reach one, they could escape. But the nearest tunnel was through a section that was heavily damaged. "It is dangerous," Kevin said, "but it is our best option." "Then we go," Caro said. The other cubs made sounds of agreement. They moved as a group. Kevin and Thexrel led. The cubs helped the injured cadets. Everyone watched out for each other. It was slow going, but they made progress. Then they reached the worst part. A long corridor that was actively collapsing. Pieces of the ceiling fell randomly. Holographic fire made the air shimmer with heat. Real support beams were cracking. If they were going to get through, they needed to move fast and together. "Stay close," Kevin instructed. "Do not stop for anything. If someone falls, the person next to them helps them up and we keep moving." "Understood?" Everyone nodded. Fear was clear on their faces, but also determination. They trusted him. They would follow him. They ran. The corridor seemed endless. Kevin heard screaming behind him as debris fell. He heard Thexrel shouting encouragement. He heard the cubs roaring, pushing the group forward. And then they were through. They burst into a maintenance tunnel, and suddenly everything was quiet and solid and real. Kevin counted heads. 15 cadets, 5 cubs, 1 commander, all present, all alive. Relief made his legs weak, but he forced himself to stay standing. "Keep moving. We are not safe yet." The maintenance tunnel led them to an emergency exit. When they emerged from the dome, a crowd was waiting. Medical teams rushed forward. Administrators shouted questions. Other cadets cheered. Kevin saw Admiral Zarath pushing through the crowd. The old Kresh warrior looked at the group of rescued cadets, then at Kevin. Something like respect showed in his eyes. "Well done, Instructor Harper," Zarath said simply. Over the next few days, the Academy investigated what happened. Vexthor confessed everything. His plan, his co-conspirators, his terrible mistake. He expected to be expelled and possibly face criminal charges, but Kevin spoke on his behalf. "He made a bad choice," Kevin told the disciplinary board. "But he is young. He can learn from this. Throwing him away helps no one." The board decided on strict probation instead of expulsion. Vexthor would repeat his year, undergo counseling, and serve community service hours. "It was a second chance. Why did you help me?" Vexthor asked Kevin after the hearing. "I almost got everyone killed because I hated your teaching methods." Kevin looked at him steadily. "Because everyone deserves a chance to be better. You made a mistake, but you can grow from it. That is what education is about." The incident had far-reaching effects. The Academy completely overhauled its safety protocols. More importantly, the debate about military training intensified across the Allied systems. Kevin's methods were now being discussed at the highest levels of government. Some species adopted the new curriculum quickly. Others resisted. But slowly, change was happening. The idea that survival and adaptability were as important as courage and strength was taking root. 6 months after the dome incident, there was a graduation ceremony. The Vryn cubs were moving to advanced training. They had grown so much. Kara was more thoughtful now, less quick to rely on aggression. Mila had become an excellent teacher herself, helping younger cadets adjust to the new methods. Jeth, Rin, and Tessa had each found their own strengths. At the ceremony, the Vryn government presented Kevin with an award. It was called Keeper of Cubs Gain, their highest honor for someone who teaches and protects their young. Kevin accepted it with humility, knowing he did not do any of this alone. After the ceremony, the cubs found him in a quiet hallway. "We wanted to say goodbye properly," Caro said. "And thank you for everything." "You do not need to thank me," Kevin said. "You did the hard work. You learned and grew. I just pointed you in a direction." "You did more than that," Mila said. "You showed us a different way to be warriors, a way that honors life as much as courage." They talked for a while, sharing memories and making promises to stay in touch. When they finally left, Kevin felt both proud and sad. Proud of what they had become. Sad to see them go. Dexrel found him later, standing alone in an empty classroom. "Thinking about the cubs?" the commander asked. "Yes," Kevin admitted. "I will miss them." "They will do well," Dexrel said. "Because of what you taught them." He paused. "I wanted to tell you something. The Academy Board has offered you the position of Director of Tactical Education. You would oversee all combat training across the Academy." Kevin shook his head. "I am honored, but no. I am a teacher. I belong in the classroom with students, not behind a desk." Dexrel smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "I told them you would say that. So they have another offer, your own advanced program. You choose the students, you design the curriculum. Complete freedom to teach your way. That was more interesting." Kevin considered it. "I accept. On one condition." "What condition?" "You co-teach with me," Kevin said. "The cadets need both perspectives. The old warrior wisdom and the new adaptive thinking. Together we can give them the complete education they deserve." Dexrel extended his clawed hand. Kevin shook it. Once they had been adversaries. Now they were partners. Both teaching, both learning, both growing. That evening, Kevin returned to his quarters. On his wall was a photo from the crashed moon. All 20 cadets together with Kevin in the center. The Vryn cubs were in front, and if you looked closely, you could see they were all pointing at him. Below the photo was a small plaque with words from Caro. "The greatest warrior is not the one who never falls, but the one who ensures no one falls alone." Kevin smiled at the photo. Somewhere out there, those cubs were beginning new adventures. Other cadets were learning to survive and adapt. Change was spreading across the Allied systems, one classroom at a time. And tomorrow, Kevin would teach again, because that was what he did. That was what he would always do. Not because he sought glory or recognition, but because every student deserved a teacher who would help them come home alive. That was enough. That was everything. The stars outside his window seemed brighter somehow, full of possibility, full of hope. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy. Not through overwhelming force or ancient warrior traditions, but through something simpler and more powerful. Through caring whether people lived or died. Through teaching survival as a virtue, not a weakness. Through understanding that the strongest warriors are those who bring everyone home. Kevin picked up his teaching materials for tomorrow's class. New students would arrive soon. They would have their own challenges, their own lessons to learn, and he would be there to guide them. After all, that was what teachers did. That was what he did best. And somewhere in the galaxy, 5 Vryn cubs who had once laughed at a human instructor were telling others about the teacher who changed everything. The teacher who taught them that survival was not just about staying alive. It was about making sure others stayed alive too, and that made all the difference.